Hey guys, Shyla. So today is story time. Next week, hopefully somebody else will be doing it. But I didn't know what story I was going to go with. I originally was going to read the story about my father, but since I posted it on the page already, I wasn't sure if I should read it or not. But a few people wanted me to, so I'm just going to read the story about my dad dying. It's called 5:15 a.m. He passed away, Shyla. My aunt paused for a second and then continued. I'm so sorry. I felt nothing. I realized what happened. It's not as if I was in denial, but I felt nothing. I was neither sad nor depressed. I simply got off the couch, went to my bedroom, and lay there on my bed. I stared at the ceiling, the glow-in-the-dark stars covering it. There were clothes scattered everywhere around my room. Not that I cared. I wasn't even thinking about the clothes or the stars. I don't remember what I was thinking, or if I was even thinking at all. He was dead, and I was numb. Let me start from the beginning. Well, not the very beginning of my life, but the middle. At the time, I resided with my great aunt, great uncle, and my brother Connor. Though I was at camp when this story starts. It was the summer before 7th grade, and I was at Camp Pupniconic. It was the last day, and I was chatting with fellow campers about how I was dreading going back home and continuing visitations with my mother and father. To this day, I cannot figure out if I regret saying that or not. My aunt pulled up in her blue Pontiac Montana with the shining jewels hanging from the rear view mirror. She looks upset, I said. I wondered what happened. I loaded my things into the vehicle and hugged my camp friends goodbye. I got into the van and waved as my aunt pulled away without saying a word. We should go get some dessert. Where would you like to go? My aunt asked. I thought, Big Boy, I suppose. There was country music playing on the radio quietly, but my aunt wasn't singing, which was strange. Jokingly, I asked, who died? I laughed until I saw all the emotion melt slowly off her face. We need to talk. Those words were never good. Those 4 simple words, they were the definition of disappointment and heartbreak. Boyfriends used it before breaking up with their girlfriends. Parents use it before announcing to their children about their decision on a separation or divorce. It's never good. All I could think of was, what do we need to talk about? We drove in complete silence except for the music for about an hour. We arrived at Big Boy, and we went and sat down. After ordering our desserts, my aunt started to speak. I'm sorry about this smile. I'm really nervous, and I don't know how to say this. I waited, my mind running rapidly throughout all the possibilities. What did I do? What did she find? Did something happen? Did someone actually die? I quietly spoke. Go on. Your father. She paused to search for Kleenex in her purse. He's in a coma. He overdosed. Grandma doesn't think it was a suicide. You know how he used to take pills, forget he took them, and take more. She pulled out the tiny package of Kleenex and handed them to me, expecting me to take them. I nodded inside, pushing the Kleenex away from me. I knew that too well. He had done that all my life for as long as I could remember. He was always high on a variety of different drugs. All I could say was, okay. Would you like to go see him? We can go up tomorrow morning and stay the weekend. I guess, sure, I replied. The next morning, we headed to Gaylord, Michigan, where my father lay in a hospital bed. To keep your attention, I'll skip going into detail about the boring 4-hour drive. You aren't missing a thing. We arrived in Gaylord. We checked into our hotel, and we headed to the hospital. It was only a few minutes away. After we reached our destination, we headed into the hospital to find my father. I was nervous. Not the butterflies in my stomach nervous either. It was more like the I'm gonna throw up nervousness. How would he look? Would I cry? What was I supposed to do? What was I supposed to say? I took a deep breath and entered the hospital room my father was in. I looked at him. He looked peaceful, like he was sleeping. I said hello to my grandma, who was sitting on the side of his bed. My grandma stood up and greeted me with a hug. As we let go, she took my hand and spoke to me. Would you like to talk to him? He can hear you, you know. He can't talk back, but he's listening. Shyla's here, Doug. I'm going to leave you two alone. My grandma smiled at me, but I could see past the mask. I was wearing one too. I wasn't hiding sadness like you may think. I was holding back resentment and hiding my anger. I was furious. Why did he have to do that? Why was he so dumb? He messed up my childhood because of his drug abuse, and now he messed up his future. My grandma squeezed my hand, let go, and walked towards the door. I held back the tears until my grandma left. After I heard the door shut behind her, I walked over to him. Hey there, I mumbled as I sat beside my father. I decided to tell him how I felt. For once I could tell him, and he couldn't shut me up. I told him that I couldn't believe him. I explained how angry I was. But I held his hand. It was cold and pale, as if he was already gone. I told him that I loved him even after everything. I started to walk out of the room, and right before I opened the door, I turned towards him for the last time and whispered, I forgive you. I feel like you should know that. I didn't say a word to anyone for a week. No one made me. They thought I was upset, but I wasn't. I was numb to emotion. I didn't want to feel. Emotions seemed like the enemy. When my aunt knocked on my door around noon on July 29th, 2005, I held my breath. I figured it had to be good news, right? Or maybe bad. She didn't sound happy. It had to be bad. Nothing seemed to be going well lately. I stayed silent until she spoke. Come to the living room, please. We need to talk. Those words again. How could those 4 little words make me feel this way? My mind was blank and both my stomach and chest were hollowed. I waited a few minutes and finally decided to go out there. I walked slowly down the hall, taking deep, slow breaths. The TV was going, cartoon characters enjoying their carefree lives. Connor was making noises with his cars, crashing them into one another. I walked silently, still taking deep, slow breaths. The white walls around me, the hallway seeming like it would never end. I walked and walked for what seemed like an eternity and eventually ended up in the living room. I walked toward the love seat and sat down, my aunt on the opposite couch. She took a deep breath and started to speak. Shyla, I don't know how to say this, but at 5:15 a.m. I almost started crying there for a second. Yeah. So, as I said before, I don't know who's going to be doing the story time next week. If nobody wants to do it, I'll do it. Gotta find a story for you guys. Some of them won't actually be like real life stories. They'll be like short stories that we've written. You can always send your short stories that you want, like real or fiction, to getreadyforafield trip at yahoo.com, and we can read them for you in our videos. So I hope you guys liked my story. For those that had already seen it and didn't want to hear it again, I apologize. And for those that wanted to hear it, I hope you enjoyed it. Bye, guys.